Welcome to my new office. This is the first time I'm filming in here and I couldn't be happier to share the Seashore blouse tutorial. This is a tutorial that I've been working on for the past couple of months. So I showed you or shared here on my channel already like a month ago the Seashore skirt tutorial, and initial plan was to very quickly then film and upload here the Seashore blouse tutorial, but well, you know, life gets busy. I got sick because Edwin started daycare and just some things. So, but finally I'm in my new space, my new office. Gonna share more about that as well in some coming videos, just things that have been happening here over at Kutovakika. But this one is a tutorial for the Seashore blouse. I have tried to make this obviously very accessible, give you an overview of the Seashore blouse pattern, how to knit it. But I will say some of the parts I'm not gonna share in this video, but I'm actually gonna direct you to the Seashore skirt tutorial, because in that one I already have explained some of the things very in depth and in detail, like some of these, oh, there's some nature on my piece. Yes, some of these motifs. So, but in this video, so I would say the Seashore blouse is it's not very beginner-friendly pattern, if I'm honest. So it's best if you've knitted already for a while. Maybe you're curious to get into lace knitting. I love lace knitting. But there are definitely some charts and things going on in this one. So it's maybe not a good place to start, but I'm hoping with these videos to just give you the tools and for you to see that actually when you break it down, so I know that a knit pattern can feel quite overwhelming, but then when you see it broken down, and as always, I always tell people you can watch this tutorial first and then you can decide if you want to knit this or not. And you always know that you have this video that you can come back to. So I will link, of course, links to the pattern below, either at kutovakika.com or on Ravelry. And so then you can just also follow along if you want to first download the pattern as you go through this tutorial, and well, you're just not going to be alone when you knit this. Funny thing is, so this is definitely the tutorial for the Seashore blouse, but actually as I was knitting this, or my blouse, well, this was a sample knitter, I know who knitted this, and I actually knitted a dress. So I got so inspired, and that's a cringy thing to say about your own work, that I got so inspired by my own work. But what I mean was that I got, I suppose, so carried away and excited about just this design. So I decided to make it into a dress as well. So this is also the tutorial for the dress, because here really you have the yoke is exactly the same in both the blouse and the dress. Then you have the body, continues a little bit different, and that's why there's also a different pattern for this bow. It just keeps it, well, more clear, and then, well, increases happen here in the stitch pattern itself. So again, I'll also link this in the description below. But so what you need to know is that, well, I've knitted mine with silk yarn, and this was with Sandnes Garn Linen, which is like linen viscose, I think, cotton blend. So I would say this is more maybe a summer dress or summer pattern, but obviously you could also wear it during the chillier season, especially with layering. And well, you'll find all the specifications in the pattern, but there are definitely some fun techniques here. This very decorative pattern. You have the I-cord edge here. Start from here, top, and then you work down. Then you have the sleeves, and in the sleeves you have this really fun cuff, as well as here at the hem. And this is actually the same hem as in the skirt. So you have these overlapping elements here. So yeah, if you choose to do the dress, or then you have the set. Here's my original blouse as well. So just to show you some different colors. Also, I'm going through like a bit of a blue season here right now, but just to give you some inspiration. But Without further ado, let's just jump into it. I hope you'll find this helpful and inspiring, or maybe you'll learn something new. So yeah, grab the pattern or grab your knitting needles and follow along.
For my Seashore blouse, I'm going to be using 2 strands of Tyndline by Sandnes Garn held together. This is in the shade 6032. So I think this is gonna produce a really nice drape and just adore the color. All right, let's begin casting on stitches for the Seashore blouse. I'm gonna be using the Longtail Cast-on method, which means I need to have a generous amount of yarn here. And I start by just making a slip knot. And then I grab my needle. I'm using a 4mm needle for this, so that's a US 6 needle. Then I tighten, and then I have the yarns that go here to my skeins over there, and then I have this tail here. And then I'm just gonna grab those both with my hands like so, and then I'm gonna be casting on 112 stitches for my Seashore blouse. Check the pattern. The amount of stitches that you cast on differs a little bit. All right, I have cast on all of my stitches, and now I'm going to be joining in the round. So I'm gonna grab a beginning of round marker. I'll put this one in for now. First, you're gonna work a setup round where you place some markers to indicate where you have your raglan seam and your sleeves and the front and the back. So I've just done that. So the logic is here I have my beginning of round marker. I've used a different kind of marker just because it makes it easier to identify where that beginning of round marker is. Then you have first your raglan seam stitches. So those are 5 stitches. And then I have stitch marker. Then you have sleeve stitches. Again, raglan seam stitches here, and I've used just a pair of different colored stitch markers for each of these raglan seams. This is totally optional. I just like it. It keeps it all organized. So you have your sleeve stitches, raglan seam, then your front stitches, again, a raglan seam, sleeve stitches, raglan seam, and your back stitches. So that's the logic when we start to work the yoke in the round. And you're essentially going to start work according to chart A. And chart A is divided into 3 parts. Now, for some of the sizes, for example, the size extra, extra small and extra small, you only work chart A part 1. But then for the other sizes, you want to work the yoke to additional length and shaping. So then you're just going to work those according to part 2 and part 3 of chart A. But it all begins with round 1, except for sizes 3XL and 5XL, those begin at round 5. And the logic is basically you're always gonna work chart A for both the sleeve and the front and back stitches, but you're gonna do the pattern repeat a different amount of times. So the pattern is the same, you just have less stitches for the sleeves than the front and the back stitches. And then you have the raglan seam stitches that are also included in chart A. So it's just easy to see where you are, which round you are working and what you have to do. Okay, let's start working according to chart A. I've grabbed a different needle because my needle is just too short, so they are very tight. It's very impossible to knit this, so I'm just gonna start knitting with this new needle instead. So these first 5 stitches, you're gonna working according to columns 1 to 5 on the chart, and then you'll see this gray area, so those aren't counted as stitches. All right, and then I know here, this is the end of my raglan seam stitches, so I go ahead and slip that marker. Next, we're gonna do an increase. So we skip those gray stitches or gray boxes in the charts that are marked as no stitch if you have the chart in front of you or the pattern in front of you. And I'm gonna be making 1 left. So I'm gonna do my increase and I make 1 left. So I need to locate the yarn here, the strand between my stitches. So that's this yarn here. And I'm gonna go in through the front. So I actually use my left needle and grab that onto my left needle, and then I'm gonna knit it through the back. So I knit it twisted. So I go in through the back here and knit this strand that I just picked up between my stitches. Then I'm going to be knitting 2. And then we have a little sequence. So we have a yarn over, a central double decrease, and a yarn over. So first I'm gonna do a yarn over, and you're gonna be making lots of yarn overs in this pattern. So basically you do a yarn over just by your working yarn. You're just gonna bring it up and over the working needle. So you essentially just make a loop. A yarn over is essentially a hole that we create in the fabric, and this also increases our stitch numbers by 1. Next, I'm gonna be doing central double decrease, and this consumes the next 3 stitches here. So I'm going to be slipping the first 2 stitches knitwise together, and it's very important that you do it together. So I go in here in the second stitch and slip that one together with this first stitch, or well, depending on the logic, but these 2 stitches knitwise. So I just slip them from the left to my right needle. Then I'm gonna go ahead and knit 1. And next I'm going to be pulling the stitches that I just slipped over that stitch that I knitted. So I pull it over the knitted stitch, like so. And here, now I've essentially decreased 2 stitches because we knitted 3 stitches together, and I have done 1 increase here with the yarn over. So then I do a second yarn over like that. So even though I decreased 2 stitches, I've also increased 2 stitches. So the stitch count stays the same. Next, if you have the chart in front of you, you'll see a blue box between the next 8 stitches. So that means that this section you're going to be repeating X amount of times, depending on if you're working the sleeve or the front stitch, but essentially until you get to, you only have 2 stitches left. So you can always check how many stitches are left before my marker. And that's how you know how many times you need to then repeat the stitch pattern. Now I only have 2 stitches left. So that's how I know that the pattern repeat is over. And here I'm now gonna do make 1 right. So this time, instead, I'm gonna go in through the back of this strand between my stitches and bring that up on my left needle. And this time I'm going to be knitting this through the front, like that. And I have increased 1 stitch. I've now completed round 1 and round 2 of my yoke. So here I have my beginning of round marker. I'm about to start round 3, so I thought I'll just show you how to do the SSKs and the knit 2 togethers. So round 3, I've worked my raglan seam stitches here. I need to do my increase here at the start, so I make 1 left, and then I have 1 knit stitch. And then I'm going to next be doing an SSK with my next 2 stitches. So I'm going to be slipping knitwise, so that means that I'll go in through it as if to knit, but I actually don't knit it, I just slip it onto the right needle, and I do the same with this next stitch. And then I can use my left hand needle to go in through both of these stitches like so, and wrap my yarn around and bring that all through, and I have now done a slip slip knit, so that's a left leaning decrease. And then I need to do a yarn over because now I've decreased 1, so then I want to increase 1. And then I have 3 knit stitches, and then you can see again the pattern repeat start. So then I'm going to do a yarn over, and this time I'm going to do a knit 2 together. So that just means the next 2 stitches I'll go in through both of them as if to knit, but I actually knit them 2 together to create my right leaning decrease. And then I just have 1 knit stitch here, and then I do my SSK again. So I slip, slip, and I knit them together. I do my yarn over, and then we have 3 stitches, and then this pattern repeat starts over again. So I go and work column 32 if you follow chart A, although I'm now working the sleeve, so actually the pattern repeat stops, so I only have a yarn over and a knit 2 together. And then I knit 1, and then I make 1 right, so I bring my strand here between onto my needle, and I do my increase. now you know all the techniques to continue yoke. So for chart A, so you know how to do the central double decrease, yarn overs, SSK, knit two togethers, and also the increases, make one left and make one right. So you're gonna continue that, and I'll meet you once the yoke is complete. I have now completed the yoke, so I worked 10 rounds of chart B, and now I'm back at the beginning of round marker, and next we're gonna start knitting the lower body. Before we do that, we have to transfer our sleeve stitches on hold. So I've grabbed some stitch wires here, so you can use these, you can also use some scrap yarn, and then we're gonna continue working just the body in the round. All right, let's separate the stitches for the sleeves and the body. Here's my beginning of round marker. So first we're just gonna knit one through the back loop. This is the raglan seam. Then I knit 3 stitches. So these are the raglan seam stitches. And I knit one through the back loop. Then I'm going to be removing this marker. You'll see this abbreviated as RM. So I can remove that marker. And then what I want to be doing is I want to transfer all of my sleeve stitches onto a stitch wire or some scrap yarn. So I'm just gonna grab my stitch wire, pop this little tube onto my needle like this. And now I'm gonna be transferring all of my sleeve stitches, so I know that that's the stitches until my next marker. Just gonna transfer them onto the stitch wire. All right, those are my sleeve stitches. I like to make a little loose knot here to make sure that I do not lose these sleeve stitches. Then I can go ahead and, oh, I think I already dropped it. That marker that was here, you can go ahead and remove that marker. Once you've transferred your stitches, then we're gonna be casting on some stitches here for the underarm. Depending on what size, you're gonna be casting on a different amount. I'm knitting size extra small, so I need to cast on 7 stitches, and I'm doing this with the backwards loop cast on method. So I just grab my yarn and I use my thumb, go open over and casting on these new stitches. 4, 5, 6, and 7. Like that. So those are my new underarm stitches. Then I grab my other needle, and then again we have these raglan seam stitches, so I'm gonna be knitting one through the back loop. Then I knit 3 and knit one through the back loop. I have a stitch marker here, but this one I'm just gonna slip this time, so SM, slip that stitch marker. And then I'm gonna be knitting all of these stitches, so these are now the front stitches, so I'll knit them until the next marker. All right, so now we have separated the stitches for the sleeves and for the body, and next we're just gonna continue to work only the body stitches first, and you do this according to chart C for the front and back stitches, and then for chart D in your chosen side for the underarm stitches. And the underarm stitches I count as basically the old raglan seam stitches, so these 5 that we have here. So 5 and 5 for the front and 5 and 5 for the back, so that's 10 stitches, plus then the underarm stitches that we just cast on. So you have like a little bit of a different, or basically this raglan seam stitch pattern that continues for the side seams, which is very elegant and a nice detail. And here we're gonna start working according to chart C. So for round 1, I need to slip my marker, and here now I'm going to be between these stitch markers gonna work according to chart D, so that's the underarm stitches. So here are the stitches that I cast on for the underarm. Always the first round is a little bit finicky, but that's just the nature of it. Now I'm gonna start working the front stitches according to chart C. So you'll see in chart C there's this green box, which basically just means that you're gonna first purl that first stitch that isn't inside the box, and then you start repeating the pattern repeat in the box, which is you knit 8, purl 1, knit 8, purl 1, and continue that all the way until your next stitch marker.
Depending on if you're gonna work the Seashore blouse or the Seashore dress that I started to design as I actually was filming this tutorial, I decided I want to try to make this into a dress. So the yoke is exactly the same for both, and also here, so we separated the stitches for the body and has started to work that, and this is worked according to chart C. And actually I have in the Seashore skirt tutorial a very detailed breakdown video of how to work chart C. There it's actually named chart A, but I'll link that in the description below so you can check that out. So I won't go into too much detail because it's all the same techniques that you already know that we went through here for the yoke. But if you want to see like some extra notes on just this section, chart C, I definitely recommend to go and check that out. Now then the way it continues, of course, for the Seashore blouse is here you will have a different stitch pattern. Here in the dress it continues with this same a little bit of a version of it, but essentially you continue the body as long as you prefer. There's a recommended length in the pattern, but I always recommend to put your stitches on a stitch wire like this, for example, and try it on to see that you get a length that fits you. Next, I want to show you how to pick up stitches for the sleeves and begin working them in the round. I'm going to be using a shorter cable. I have a bit of a wonky setup. I couldn't find this pair to it. I don't know, knitting needles, why do they always disappear? So I have a different, but we're both 4mm in size, which is what I need. So first I am going to start by just transferring all of my stitches that I had on hold here onto my working needle. All right, so I'm bringing in a new yarn, and now you're gonna see in the pattern slightly different instructions depending on what size you're working. So just check that you're working according to your size. So I'm working size extra small. So I'm going to be starting to pick up stitches here from the right edge of my underarm stitches. So usually in knit patterns, you begin picking up stitches from the middle of the underarm here, but actually here we're gonna start picking up stitches here from the right edge of the underarm. So I'm going to begin here, my underarm stitches, and I need to pick up 7 stitches. So basically for all the sizes, you're gonna be picking up 1 stitch per stitch. Now in some of the smaller sizes, you're also going to be picking up stitches here in the gap just to increase stitches slightly because you only had 1 here stitch at the underarm, but here we have 7, and for some of the larger sizes, you're going to be picking up more stitches here. So after I've picked up my stitches, I'm going to be placing a marker, and then I am going to purl 1 and knit 8 and purl 1 and repeat that across. So purl 1 and then I will knit 8, purl 1. When I've worked all of my sleeve stitches, I'll place a beginning of round marker, and then we're gonna start working round 1. So round 1 is also a little bit different for the different sizes. I'm working size extra small, so I'm going to be first knitting 2 together. And I do that because we want to have the underarm or the undersleeve stitches. We need to have 5 all in all, and I have 7, so I need to knit 2 together, then I knit 3, and then I knit 2 together again. And then I slip my marker, and then again I'm going to be purling 1 and knit 8 and purl 1 until the marker. After you worked your few setup rounds of the sleeve, you're gonna start working the sleeve stitches according to chart C. So that's the same that we worked here for the body or the lower body. So that repeats here. And then for these sleeve underarm stitches, essentially it's the same pattern that for here, the raglan seam. When I picked up stitches for the underarm, I managed to get a pretty big gap here, which isn't really ideal, but it's very quick to fix. So you can actually use this thread here that is left from the new yarn that we joined in, and I'm just gonna close this gap. So I'm just gonna trace some of these stitches here and close this gap, because obviously I don't want to have this big hole, this gaping hole here at my underarm. I've now completed the sleeve and also the body and just bound off the hem. Now obviously this isn't blocked yet, so it's going to change a little bit how it looks, just smooth out. But next I want to show you how to work the I-cord collar, and well, then I still need to finish one sleeve. For the neckline, I'm going to use a 3mm, so that's a US 2.5 circular needle, and I'm going to pick up stitches around the entire neckline. So I'm going to start here at one of the seams between the sleeves and, well, either at the back and the front. I mean, this is identical, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to start picking up stitches by just inserting my needle here close to the edge, just wrap some yarn and bring it through. The pickup rhythm is you pick up and knit one per one stitch, and in the pattern you'll also find how many stitches you want to have in total at the end. And of course you have this lace pattern, so I generally will try to skip those yarn overs, because I feel like if I pick up a stitch here, you have all this kind of yarn, just doesn't look so great, so I kind of go in here instead after that hole of the yarn over. Now I've picked up stitches from the entire neckline, and next we're going to be casting on a few new stitches, and then we're going to start to work the I-cord collar or the I-cord edge. We're going to cast on 3 new stitches here from the right side, so as you would start to knit in the round, but we're going to just use this first stitch here that we picked up. So I'm going to be casting on 3 new stitches with the knitted cast-on method. Now I have my yarn here, so this wants to be a little bit loose. There's my working yarn. So I just go in this first loop as I would knit it, like this. But then instead, this new stitch that I just created, I'm just going to transfer it onto my left needle, like that. So I've cast on now 1 stitch with the knitted cast-on method. Then again, I will knit this stitch that we just created, like that, and then again I transfer it onto this left needle. So now we cast on 2 new stitches and then a 3rd stitch. So again I go into this loop that we just created, or stitch, I knit that, and again I will transfer it here onto the left needle. So now I've cast on 3 new stitches with the knitted cast-on method, and now starts the I-cord collar. So now I'm going to be knitting these first 2 stitches. So I knit 2, 1 and 2, and then I'm going to be knitting this last stitch together. Wait a minute, oh yeah, I need to tighten that first loop. This thread is making it very loose. So I'm going to be now these last 2 stitches, so I knit 2. These I'm going to be knitting together through the back loop. So that means that it's going to be one of the stitches that we just cast on together with one of the picked up stitches. So I go in through the back loops here, like so, and I knit them together. So I have 3 stitches. Now, instead of turning the work, I'm just going to be transferring all of these stitches from the right needle to the left needle. So 1, 2, and 3. And then I repeat. So then again, I just start knitting. So I knit 2, 1, and 2. And then I'm going to be knitting these 2 stitches together. So 1, or the last stitch from the I-cord, together with 1 stitch from the picked up stitches, like that. And then again, I will transfer all of them onto the left needle. And we're going to be repeating this all across until we've worked all of our picked up stitches. And then lastly, we're going to be sewing together the end together with the beginning here. I'm going to work the entire I-cord edge. And when you have 4 stitches left, you're just going to cut the yarn and thread it onto a tapestry needle. And we're going to be closing this gap. So I'm going to be sewing these 4 last stitches together with the beginning here. So you're gonna close the gap with the Kitchener stitch. So you're basically gonna go in through, I guess this is purlwise, through the stitch on your needle. Then I'm gonna try to find the corresponding stitch here of the beginning of the I-cord edge and go in again through those legs of a stitch. Take that through and then again bring it through this once more, now from the other side, so knitwise, like that, and then I can go ahead and remove my needle from that stitch. So this is slightly finicky, but I mean, any way you can get the seam to be invisible. Oh, all tricks are allowed. Uh-oh. Now these last 2 stitches, I need to go in through both of them, so we're going to treat them as one stitch. My seam, for some reason, didn't become like super tidy, so you might have to do some corrective actions here. It was a little loose, some of these stitches, but yeah. Try to make it as invisible as you can, and then just gonna weave in the end here on the wrong side. Here it is, my dress is ready and blocked, and one thing I will say, I recommend definitely to block your Seashore blouse or the dress, just because lace will really just relax, bloom out, and just look better after you do that. And well, do be mindful, I would say, with the sleeves on this design, like this part here, I would recommend to kind of stretch out a little bit, because this part tends to be a little bit more snug than this stitch pattern here. So just when it's wet, it's easier to just manipulate that a little bit and try to make it quite even though I will say it produces quite a nice effect actually when it's quite tight tugging here. As you can see here, you can really see it when it's not on me. And there it kind of flares out a little bit. So that's also quite a nice little detail. Obviously also you can see here, so with the dress, I've done a shorter sleeve. So you can decide, I mean, for the dress, you could definitely also do a long sleeve. You could do a long version as well of the whole dress. I'm actually planning to maybe, I don't think I have the time myself to knit another Seashore dress, but I'm planning to maybe have a sample knitter help me knit a long sleeved and like a total like maxi length Seashore dress. I think that would be so gorgeous now for fall and the colder months, but let's see if I get to that. So many projects, so little time. Even though, where's the rush? There's no rush. Yeah, anyways, thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope it was helpful for you and inspiring. And yeah, you can come and check out the patterns. You'll find that on kutovakika.com and also on Ravelry. I have so many exciting things that I want to share and show you that I'm planning, and definitely gonna plan as well, or I'm planning to to film more videos now that I have this new gorgeous studio space here with all of this light. So looking forward to that, many good things ahead. All right, and as always, you can come and say hi. I'm over at Kutovakika over on Instagram. There I share a lot of behind the scenes stuff and just things that I'm working on. So come and say hi over there and let's connect. All right, take care and see you in the next one. Bye.